Last year was amazing, but we can't think that we have to be last year's team. And our whole theme this year has been called, we used to call it Dare to Race. And so for us, if you're going to be our fan or if you're going to be following along, put your seatbelt on, and our goal is to pass as many people as we can. And so with the mindset of taking us to regionals, our goal is that we continue to put FAU on the map. And so I talk with other coaches in the department, and a lot of people talk about, we like to wear our logo with the FAU across the top instead of just the owl head. And I like to say we like the forward-facing owl because eventually people are going to know who we are without ever having to say it. And so that's the goal of this program. Is I feel like we've made splashes across the country, and people know who we are in the recruiting world. They know who we are on the field. And at the end of the day, we want to be that opponent that when people see it matched up on their website or on Twitter, that they know it's going to be a really hard game. And so going back to expectations, we tell our girls pressure is a privilege, and we want to be somebody's toughest game, and we want to pass people along the way.
Questions?
What I noticed, Coach Clark, what I noticed the most about the team last season, as I probably mentioned it to you before, is the vibes, the energy. It was always great. How have you guys kind of attacked getting that same type of unity and vibes with this new group of players?
Yeah, they sometimes say a team takes on their coach's personality, and sometimes I look at our team and I'm like, wow, we are obnoxious. And so it's cool because I think that in our program we allow people to be who they want to be. You guys got a chance to see Ainsley and Kylie, two different personalities. And so for us, we're going to celebrate the little wins. For Christmas, I got a hat and it says a win is a win. And that's kind of our mission and our vibe this year. Is it might not always be pretty. It might not be, winning by 8 or winning by a home run. But at the end of the day, we are going to celebrate the little things. We are going to celebrate getting that sack bunt down. We are going to celebrate hitting a ball off the wall. We're going to celebrate a first pitch strike. And so with that, the girls, they call them sellies, as silly as it is. But if you do not do a selly in practice, they are screaming and yelling at each other. And they love TikTok, they love social media, and so I think they get a lot of their ideas off of that. But if you play for me, you get to be yourself. You get to be quirky, you get to be weird, you get to be serious. You've got a Kylie Chanel who, she is business. You've got a Ainsley who's going to light up the room with personality, but when she steps on the field, she becomes a competitor. And so, you just get to be yourself. And so we're going to have fun along the way, and we're going to be okay with mistakes, but we're also going to celebrate the positives.
And right off the bat, you guys have some pretty tough tests. It was similar last year as well. What kind of goes into that mindset right away? You guys don't have a tune-up game. You go right into it. So,
yeah, I always say if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And you got to get yourself in that conversation. And last year to be a mid-major that got an at-large bid to regionals was huge. And you have to do that based on your schedule. And the American Conference is a great conference, but you never know what it's going to look like, who's going to transfer in, who's going to transfer out. So what you can control is who you play in the front half. Your first 25 games are really important. And so we open up with Ole Miss. We have Kansas coming in second, play Clemson third game. So when you look at our schedule, you see these big names. And so the goal is for our girls to understand that what makes us different. If you look head to head, we had a better RPI than Ole Miss last year, right? And Kansas didn't make the tournament, we made the tournament. And so there's little things that we have to continue to push our girls to understand that I don't care if you're Power 4 or what you are, a good matchup is a good matchup. So we're gonna challenge them. This year we've got 2 home tournaments, 2 away tournaments, so making sure we go on the road, making sure we do some different things so that it's not the same every single year. I think you look at some programs and they have the same opponents, the same travel schedule, and they kind of rotate it each year. For us, we're going to bring in as many people as we can. Our grounds crew, we're forever thankful for them because we punch in a lot of teams, a lot of games in one weekend, but we want to have a really good schedule so we can be in the conversation at the end of the year. I tell the girls all the time, we're going to try to win conference, and if we can't win conference, we're not going to panic, but we're going to take care of business so that our name can be called at the end of the year if for some reason the conference tournament doesn't go our way.
On paper, it kind of seems like Autumn and Chloe are a transfer portal duo for sure. What have you kind of liked from their games, but also 8 new freshmen and a couple other transfers as well? What's been it like working with these new pieces?
Yeah, so if you guys have followed us at all, it's going to be a completely different team. It's going to be a completely different vibe, which makes it fun. And Autumn is Autumn. her numbers speak for itself. And we keep telling her, like, hey, what you did was great at Queens. However, is that going to translate to the American? Is it going to translate against some of this top competition? We don't know yet. And so we have to make sure that we're not complacent with last year and just expect that it's going to happen. And so we've really pushed her buttons a little bit. We've challenged her in the bullpen to have an open mind and to do some different things. And within the last 2 weeks, there's like a light bulb that's gone off with her. And we scrimmaged this past Sunday, and she made our hitters look silly. And as the offensive coach, I'm sitting there going, okay, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? But everybody knows in softball, if you have pitching, you're going to be okay. And so Autumn is a blessing. We are so thankful that Autumn chose Paradise. She's one that the minute she went into the portal, I had that thing circled, I had her highlighted, and I was like, I'm not losing this one. And so we're happy for her. I think Chloe's going to be a big surprise for everybody. Chloe comes from New Mexico. She's a small town Oklahoma kid, and let me tell you what, when she gets in front of the camera, you're going to fall in love with her. She is the epitome of what you want on this team. And I think transferring gets a bad rap. I think that people think transferring is a bad thing. I think transferring gives kids a new opportunity to become the best versions of themselves. I think that sometimes kids come in with baggage and whatnot, but Chloe is going to catch, Chloe is going to hit, and if Chloe can hit and Autumn can pitch, the Owls are going to be really good this year. And if they can't, then we're going to get creative and we're going to figure out ways to help them until they can get started.
So with great players and a great team comes a great coaching staff, and you and your staff were named AAC Coaching Staff of the Year last season. Just how do you foster such a successful coaching dynamic with your staff?
Yeah, I always say this business is about people first, and you want to be in a job where you love who you're around every day. And so, luckily we were good enough last season, and with success brings opportunities to your assistants. With our assistant last year, it was able to get Taylor Smart a head coaching job. And I tell our girls all the time, you want to be so good that we give opportunities to our staff. We hope our staff stays forever, but we're going to be excited when they get to go other places. And so with that, we've gotten to keep Nicole Newman. She's our OG. She is our pitching coach. She's been with us from the start. She's been phenomenal. To have Gabby Sacco, Player of the Year, Pitcher of the Year, her first year, to have Trinity as an All-American last year, it's just been really impressive to see what she's done with our staff and just to have consistency with me. I'm a big personality. I'm going to ride the waves of emotion, and Nicole is calm, cool, and collected, which is really good for our team. We added Shelby Pettit, who was a head coach at the JUCO level last year. She won a lot of games. She's had to do a lot of things. And so with that, it comes with, you want to be around great people. And Shelby is an amazing human. She works hard. She's invested in not only me, but the girls, this place. She's originally from Fort Lauderdale, so she has her heart in South Florida, which makes it even more special. And then we've got Kate DeLeon. Kate was a player for us last year, and I'm usually really picky about hiring former players because they played with our current athletes. But the way Kate's been able to come in and be super professional and to be creative and just to bring a different dynamic has been really special. And so what makes FAU Softball is the development. And I think that we do an amazing job of letting our players know that they are people first and they are athletes second. And we want them to know that we care about their parents, their significant others, their dogs, and constantly checking in with them. And so our staff has helped this thing grow really fast.
Not just Kate, but also Trin back on staff as well. You mentioned you're a little hesitant, but I feel like it could also be a positive as well. What do you what kind of relationship do you want them to have with the players? Yeah,
we always talk about business, right? You want to be you want to have a business professional relationship, and you just want to ask yourself that if you were sitting in my seat as a head coach, what would you want your assistants to act like towards your players? And so that's really important for me. It's something that in my 10 years of coaching, I've seen good examples and bad examples, and so it's important that I make that known in the beginning of what I want from them. And I think Trinity, Elizabeth, Kate, they've done an amazing job of going from being a player to a professional. And I commend our players because our players aren't trying to be their best friends either. And I think that that's pretty special when everybody knows the mission, and they've done a good job with it.
How has your time as an assistant at Ohio State and Arkansas shaped your approach as a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, it's been everything to me. And so I got to start in the SEC, which not a lot of people get to say that. I got to go to a regionals, go to a super regionals in my first 3 years of coaching. And so I've gotten to be on the big stage. Going to Ohio State, I was able to run the offense, run the defense, and so my hands were in a lot more things. And so those, working for Kelly Shanley at Ohio State and working for Courtney Deifel at Arkansas, it's every day, like, I'll do something and I see bits and pieces of them. And so whether you have a good working experience or a bad working experience, it's what do you learn from it? And so I was thankful that I had 2 awesome experiences. And so I get to bring pieces of that here, but it's also important to make sure our girls know that I'm not trying to make it Ohio State and Arkansas, that this is FAU. And so, but I'm forever indebted to those 2. They gave me a chance. I always tell Courtney, she took a chance on me, and she was like, I didn't take a chance on you. I was like, I was a school teacher. Like, I was a 6th grade teacher that got into college coaching because she took a chance on me. And so that has opened my mind up to hiring people like an Elizabeth, a Trinity, and a Kate, is that it takes one person to believe in you. And so those experiences are priceless, and I still talk to a lot of those athletes.
You sound very humble with your experiences and your opportunities, but you also mentioned being humble to follow in the footsteps of Joan Joyce.
Yeah.
How did her legacy influence your approach to FAU?
Yeah, you talk about big shoes to fall into. Quickly, week 1 on the job, I realized, you know, how big that task was going to be, and everything that we've done here has been to honor her and to continue to build this thing up to where she once had it. And, you know, I'm excited for our first home game. You guys will get to see on the padding walls of how many championships there were before me. And I think that's what we forget, is that at one time, this place won everything. And it was really special. And so with Joan, being able to name the field after Joan, being able to have the Joan Joyce Invitational, being able to still talk about her in the program is really special. And to have alumni events to where they get to come back and they get to celebrate her is really important. And I tell the girls all the time, I'm not Joan. I'm never going to be Joan. I'm not going to try to be Joan. I'm going to be me. And at times she is probably laughing and rolling her eyes that this girl is crazy that took over after me. But I'm forever indebted to her and forever indebted for what she built this as, so that I could come in and be able to just keep moving it forward.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit, what do you kind of, if anyone specifically, do you see kind of replacing the lost hitting between Trin, Cam, Presley? Is there anyone that's stepping up specifically?
Yeah, I said this the other day, and I truly believe 1 through 24, we've got 6 pitchers, 18 hitters, and we've got 18 girls that could take an at-bat at any point this season, which I couldn't tell you that the past 2 seasons. You had your core group. But as far as some names that you'll see that are new, you've got a Sierra Gibson who transferred from Liberty. She was hurt all last season. I think she's the sleeper in the bunch. I think that she has this presence. She's quiet, but she's also dynamic. You've got Chloe, who we talked about. She's going to be your Trinity. She is going to be an all or nothing. She's hitting it off the wall, and she's going to hit the ball at you about 80 miles an hour. You've got a Bella Ferran, who's a slapper and who's going to put the ball in play and who's going to make a mess, who is going to be replacing similar to a cameo. You've got Jessie Anna, who's just on a completely different level. Kylie Chanel, who's obviously back. You've got Kylie Shelton, transfer from Colgate, who is the freshman of the year, who's a big lefty bat that has the ability to hit doubles and home runs. So I think it's going to be a balanced lineup. I think it's going to be a lineup that we're going to have our fair share of growth and learning, and it might not be pretty at times. And the one thing we talk about is we're going to bunt, we're going to steal, we are going to hit and run. Like, we are going to find ways to score, and it's up to our pitchers to give us time to get comfortable in 7 innings.
Any Zoom questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Coach, Ainsley mentioned that the first time you met her, that she knew she could trust you just from that first meeting. Do you remember that meeting, and what is it? What's the key into getting players to buy into your vision?
Yeah, I'll never forget Ainsley's visit, and her experience at her previous school didn't go as planned, and I kept remembering on her visit she kept talking about her old school, and I finally looked at her and I said, hey, we are not going to wear those colors. We are not going to talk about that school ever again. And you have to know that if you're coming here, we're going to love you, we're going to coach you, and you have to give us a chance. And so I do think that because I was a teacher first, and I have never been the biggest recruit. I'm 5'2". I've had to kind of put myself in conversations, and I've had to put myself in the room, and it hasn't been handed to me that I truly believe in the value of making someone feel special, and trying to go above and beyond to make them feel like they matter outside of softball, whether it's a text at night, a text after practice, a Chick-fil-A date, a coffee date, and being open with families as well, that when they have a good day, texting a mom or dad and telling them that their kid's doing a good job. And so that's important to me, that winning is one thing, but your legacy of how you make people feel is going to last forever. And that's my goal, is that people leave here and know that I might have been a tough coach. I might have yelled at them, maybe cussed at them a couple times, but at the end of the day, I love them and I want to be in their lives after this.
Obviously, that you were asked about Coach Joyce. I want to ask you about the whole state as a whole.
Yeah.
Tim Walton was just inducted to the NFCA Hall of Fame. I know you were there. You got Lonnie Alameda in the state. She's in the Hall of Fame. Coach Balmalone doing the job at UCF. Ken Erickson, same conference. Describe being the head coach in this state for softball.
I mean, it's rich tradition, and you think of Florida, you think of the different colleges across the state. You do have your Floridas, your Florida States, and ideally you want to be in that same conversation with recruits. And so that's important to me, that when somebody says FAU, it's not their third choice, their fourth choice. We make it really hard to say no to. And so I want, in 10 years from now, that people, maybe put you in a similar category as Lonnie and Tim, and they paved the way that we can do that. And when you look at this place and you look at what the state offers, you can be outside year round. You have, an awesome facility. You have people that truly care, that there's no reason why, being a head coach in the state, you should ever want to leave. And so my family and my friends always ask me, what's the end goal? And I was like, what do you mean? And I get to see palm trees, I get to see 75 and sunny every day, I get to have a tan. Why would I want to leave? And so it's cool, because everybody always wants to know what's your next move and what's going next. And I think that when you're where your feet are, and you see Tim's been at a spot for a long time, Lonnie's been at a spot a long time, why can't we make that similar? And I think FAU is on the rise, and what Brian White's doing is really special, and I just like to be a part of it, that we get to keep growing this thing, and hopefully we steal some recruits from those guys eventually.
Well, certainly one of the advantages is you get to play great weather. Your opening weekend tournament is considered nationally by a lot of the softball pundits as maybe a top 3, top 4 tournament of the opening weekend. Just describe that scheduling philosophy, and a lot of how people are going to be following that opening weekend tournament in eyeballs, and because that's one of the marquee tournaments of the opening weekend.
Yeah, people I think people think I'm crazy, because our staff, they came to me and they're like, why did you put all those teams in one tournament? And I was like, why not? And they're like, did you mean to do that? And so we did mean to do it. And when you're looking at matchups, you try to find, your best top 75 RPI matchups. And when you can look at the opponents that are coming that weekend, it gives us a chance to see what we're made of pretty quick. We need to be ready going into conference tournament. And so I do think the first weekend there is benefits to hosting tough teams, because everybody's still trying to get comfortable, and they're still trying to figure out what their pitching order is. They're trying to figure out their lineups. And so I always think if you're going to steal one from a team, the first weekend's a great time to steal it. And so, but then weekend 2 doesn't get any easier, because then we go Louisville, NC State, Minnesota, Villanova. So, hey, we'll see if I have some gray hairs after the first 2 weeks, or if the Owls maybe aren't in the win column as much as everybody thinks. Everybody just hang tight. I promise we're going to win. So just hang on tight for the first 2 weeks.
How you feeling about the outfield with a week to go before the season starts, from a defensive standpoint and from a lineup standpoint?
I feel really good. In fact, I feel like we have 4 girls, and I need to figure out how to get them into the lineup, which is a good problem to have. And so I have 4 outfielders that I'm like, can we put them into a different position, maybe on the infield? What can we do with them? And so having depth is a really good thing. And so I feel really good about our outfield, actually. Kylie Hammonds, who you guys got to hear from earlier, she is a beast, and she was sending them out over the hitting facility yesterday. And so I was just smiling, going, we're going to be okay.
And then my last question, this pitching staff, it seems deep, maybe the deepest you've had in your coaching career. Describe this pitching staff and the options. Picking up Autumn, and of course you got Gabby versus Ainsley, such an intangible out of the bullpen. Describe this pitching staff.
Yeah, so this pitching staff, we've got 6 pitchers. We've got Jaden Martinez, we've got And she's going to be our lefty, and I think she is the key to this. And so, if she's going to watch this and she's going to feel pressure, but, she is someone that last year was getting comfortable. She transferred to us, and so I think she's going to be a key component. You've got Gabby. Gabby's Gabby, and Gabby's going to be a bulldog. Gabby's going to compete. Gabby's going to look different this year. And then you've got Emma Grace. You've got Kelsey, who you haven't heard a lot about, and I think that's the beauty is they get to write their own story and they get to decide how this season goes and what they do with their opportunities. But I truly do believe we're going to have 6 pitchers. We've got 4 girls who are going to start it for us, and we've got 2 that are going to close it for us. And that's going to kind of be our philosophy this season. We just have to figure out what are the best matchups. You could see 3 pitchers in one game if we want to sandwich it and we really want to try to throw some people off. And so the success will come if the pitching staff can do a good job.
And I've got just a couple for you.
Okay.
I want to ask you about the pitching staff because I want to know about your approach to it. You talk about 4 starters, a couple of closers. What's going to determine how you handle that? Is it just as simple as who's the hot hand on a given day, a given weekend? Are you playing more analytics, more direct matchups? How are you going to what are you going to use to determine who you're throwing on any given day?
Well, my staff gets really mad because I like to sleep on things, and I always wait till the morning of what's on the heart. And sometimes statistics show one thing, but my heart says a different, and I always tell them that's never wrong. So we're gonna follow that. But the big thing is analytics does play a piece of it. Depending on is a team better hitting up in the zone, down in the zone. What umpire do we have behind the plate? There's so much that goes into it that people don't realize. Is like, okay, if you have somebody that's pretty tight, am I going to throw my girls who love to paint the corners? And so that's going to be a big part of it. Also, when you play these early season games, you've got double headers. So you've got an Ole Miss, you've got a Clemson back to back. Okay, who do we think they're going to pitch? Who are we going to pitch? What game are we trying to go for? You want to win all games, but ultimately you want to give yourself the best chance. And depending on what game you need to win, and then the other game you hope to steal is kind of what you're looking at doing.
And then I also just want to ask you about Jessie Moore and Kylie Chanel. Like those are probably the 2 names that are going to be circled in the lineup for a lot of opponents.
Yeah.
But because you know that ahead of time, you can prepare for that. They can prepare for that. How are they preparing for that? To know, they're going to be the ones people are going to try to get out. How are they preparing?
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever met Jessie and you've met Kylie, they are very confident. They know they're good. They don't have to be told they're good. And so for them, they are just doing what they always do, and they're prepping the same way. I think that deep down you're going to feel pressure, but they're so good that we have others around them that, they're going to have to get good pitches to hit. They're going to have to, people are going to have to throw to them, and they're going to get an opportunity. With Jessie, she's a 5-tool player. She can slap, she can hit, she can bunt. With Kylie, she's going to be your kid that's going to hit for power. She's going to hit doubles. She's gotten stronger. She's put some more muscle on, so I think that's going to help her as well. She's been working on the mental part of the game and feeling that. So we are thankful that they are Owls and that they are a big part of this. And the beauty is that they don't just have this year; they have multiple years, which is nice to have. Is that the team has kind of rallied around them. They are considered leaders on this team, and so with that, they don't take it lightly.
Cool, I'll ask one more thing. So, when teams have a lot of success the year after, they tend to be their opponent's Super Bowls. So they're getting their best effort, and I feel like that's something that might come your way. How do you go about combating that and getting your girls' best effort every night out, no matter what?
Yeah, I think last year we were the sleeper, right? Like it's the game on the schedule where you're like, oh, okay, FAU. And now I think it's one where you have to really decide, okay, who am I going to pitch? What's our strategy? And so there comes a little bit of pressure with that, but I do think that, ultimately we just got to be the best versions of ourselves, and we just got to go out and play, and we got to know that, it doesn't matter the opponent that we are playing, that we've got to treat every single one of them the same from a preparation standpoint. I will say, like, hearing our girls talk a little bit, like they're really excited for certain games, and I keep reminding them that, like, hey, these are the actual games that you need to focus on, they just get excited, and they have friends on all these other schools and teams. Or you start to see with girls, I don't know if baseball is similar to this, but maybe schools that didn't recruit them or didn't offer them as much, and so there's this personal like vendetta against them that they want to do well against them. And so it's kind of fun hearing those stories, and you get to learn a lot about what their process was in recruiting. And so yeah, I mean, I think that the beauty in this, and I tell the girls, and this is an advantage that we have, is me coming from an Ohio State and from an Arkansas, we treat this place like it's a Power 4. We treat this place from the way that we're going to travel, besides charter flights, the hotels, the flights, the food, the uniforms, the everything. Like, I don't want them to walk away going, man, I want to go to an Ole Miss because they have this, this, and this. Do they have a nicer facility? Yeah. But I tell our girls, if you can get past that piece, we treat this the exact same. And so kind of prepping them in that mentality that you have what they have, then why are we scared, or why are we circling that opponent to make that a bigger game than what it is? So that's important for us.
You mentioned the rivalries between players. I know you mentioned everything's good with you and Taylor Smart. Is there any friendly wagers on the line when a UAB FAU comes up on the map?
Yeah, you know, it's a win at all cost. And you know, it's one of those things that we're excited for her and we're excited for that, but at the end of the day, business is business, and if we want to shake hands after the games, we will. But I ultimately just care, you know, about how we do in conference, and we know that that's ultimately going to get us to regionals. And so if we can win conferences, if we can win conference tournaments, I think the girls will be excited to see her. I think that, you know, there's going to be a little bit of the pitchers probably, oh, she knows everything about us. And so with that weekend, we're just going to have to get creative with our prep. But at the end of the day, you know, all good things come to an end, and, you know, we're excited with Shelby, and Shelby's been a great addition, but definitely want to win at all costs.